YouTube, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. Today, guys, we're gonna talk about the Centurions and its counters. Now, we already talked about the Yubels and its counters yesterday, and the decks for both archetypes a week ago. And today, we already got the news on which cards are gonna come out as URs for this coming Thursday, so that's really neat. Regardless, back to the main topic, we're gonna talk about the counters for the Centurions before that happens. Like any other, we're gonna talk about the staples, the board breakers, and then the floodgates that we'll use against the deck. Now, I know that Centurions are already been nerfed because Calamity has been removed from the game, so there's no like auto win basically for the deck. Regardless, summoning level 12 monsters on the field are kind of important as well, and it's an easy feat with this type of deck. And so, let's start off this video. First and foremost, we're going to talk about the staples. Now, the important ones that I'm going to talk about here, there are 4 cards. The first 2 are very important. The second one are semi-important. So, the first 2, we have Maxi and Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. Now, Maxi is typically the bane of any type of special summon deck. That includes the Centurions. For Ghost Ogre, it is kind of a insignificant card to most of the meta decks nowadays, but this counters the field spell, it counters the Primera and even the copy of Tridea on the field, and as long as they are not able to be placed back to the back row, they can search out the card or place the cards on the field. So that's why Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit is very important against this type of deck. Now we're gonna talk about Ash Blossom and Nibiru after this. But first, we're going to talk about the semi-important cards, which is the Imperm and Bestials. The Bestials are kind of good because the Centurions are light and dark, so you can just banish them from the graveyard and then summon your Bestial monster. The main issue here is that they can just use or search out another card with a copy of Oath to gain more card advantage for that matter. So it's not really like a really hard counter, but it is like a semi-nuisance against this type of deck. Imperm, on the other hand, has quite a significant role, but not to an extent. I think it depends on the choke point that you are using Imperm on. People are using Imperm on the Primera or the Tridea, but it's more important if you use the Imperm when they try to use the effect of the Crimson Dragon when they try to summon the level 12 or another level 12 synchro on the field, which is not half bad nowadays. Even if they summon the monster to the field, it's not a calamity. Regardless, that's one of the main issues for the Imperm or Effect Veiler, but Effect Veiler doesn't really work on your side during the turn, so yeah, Imperm is much better. Now, we are not including here Ash Blossom and Nibiru. First of all, Nibiru is not really a hard counter to this deck because they can usually summon 2 or 4 monsters during the turn, and they can just end the turn with those monsters there and then cycle back the cards from their graveyard to the field afterwards and then summon them during your turns. So Nibiru is out of the question here. Ash also, they can actually work around the Ash. The monsters can be placed directly to the field, so it's not really like a hard counter. And even if you stop the copy of Primera, they can always have a copy of Oath on hand and then work their way with the combo still. It is good with some other decks, but against a Centurion deck, those are the cards. And that is our staples, guys. Let's move on with our board breakers. So for our board breakers, first and foremost, we talked about the Lava Golem, the Kaijus, the Santa Claus, and the Spear Mode and the Yubel counters that we did yesterday. They are still very useful, but only with Lava Golem, Kaijus, and Santa Claus. The reason we're not even running the Spear Mode here is because usually the board takes 1 or 2 monsters on the field, and if not, the 3 monsters are just a chance in some cases for or up against a Centurion deck. I think it's much better if you have a copy of Lava Golem. Furthermore, Kaijus is also a really good card to add with the deck, or Santa Claus. Or just basically run a copy of Lava Golem to remove 2 cards from the field. That way they can't do anything else about it. For our spells, we have a couple. First and foremost, we have Cosmic Cyclones. Now, Cosmic Cyclone is a very good counter up against a Centurion deck because most of the time they can sync during your turn, so all you need to have is a Cosmic Cyclone just to remove the field spell so that they can't sync anymore. Another good card here is Spellbound because it is a quick play spell card. My main issue with Spellbound is that, well, it is a UR card for Master Duel, although it is really important. And it can even stop your opponent from even using the monsters or the present monsters on the field as a material for a Synchro, a Link, an Exi, or whatsoever. So it can be a good showstopper up against some meta decks as well, but in some extent. So Spellbound is really dependable on what deck that you're up against. But yes, Spellbound is a really good counter against a Centurion deck, since their monsters needs to be on the field, and once you activate the effect of Spellbound, the current monsters on the field cannot be used as fodder. So that is one good counter. Another thing here is Super Poly. Now, we all know that Yubel is coming into the game, and with that, Super Poly is one of the tech cards they're going to be using for the deck. So with the Crimson Dragon and a copy of Legati on the field, summon the Mud Dragon on the field. So it's basically a board wipe at this point on. Yes, that's a really good counter for the deck. Now, the next 4 cards that I would like to recommend you guys using is the Forbidden Droplet, the Forbidden Chalice, the Book of Moon, or the Book of Eclipse. Now, Forbidden Droplet and Forbidden Chalice are really good counters against the meta nowadays. But I think Droplet is more usable because they can just target multiple monsters on the field rather than just one. Regardless, it really depends on what deck that you're using. That doesn't really need too much of a resource to remove, and then you can just start off your combo with 1 card. Chalice, on the other hand, might be an option, so I would recommend just having a Droplet for this matter. If you don't have a copy of Droplet, then Chalice is one of the good choice for you. So Book of Moon or Book of Eclipse. Eclipse is on SR, so that may be a little bit more expensive that you need to craft. But if not, you can just go with Book of Moon, which is just a rare, I think, in Master Duel, so that's easy enough to attain. Regardless, I think SR is not really hard to attain as well. It's much better than, crafting a UR. Regardless, those are the 4 extra cards that I would like to recommend to you guys if ever you have, extra space for your deck, or depending on your deck. And lastly, there are some minor ones that I'm not sure if I would like to recommend this one, but we have Talents, we have Evenly Match, and we have a copy of Dark Ruler No More. The reason that I am not even using this is because it can easily be countered, first and foremost, with their Awakening or the Centurion Awakening. And I'm not saying that the Forbidden Droplet and the other cards can't be countered, but this is, it needs to have like a requirement before it activates. Like, for example, the Talents needs to have a monster effect activated. Evenly Match needs to skip your battle phase. And Dark Ruler No More, your opponent takes no damage during this turn. So there are minor options as well, but it's really up to you if you want to go with this type of cards as well. Anyways, that is our board breakers. Let's move on with our last part of this video, which is the Floodgates. Okay, so for our Floodgates, we have here only 3 cards and 1 minor card that we're going to talk about. First and foremost, we have the Barrier. So Dimensional Barrier is one of the good cards to counter against a Centurion deck. And I think the only deck that can actually search this one even on 1 copy is Labyrinth. I think Labyrinth generally is a really good counter with the new cards in this upcoming pack. So the Yubels and the Centurions are a really good targets for the Labyrinth deck or the Labyrinth archetype, because the Labyrinth has a good engine enough to search up normal trap cards that can easily counter them. So yeah, Dimensional Barrier is one of them. Summon Limit also is a really good counter. Skill Drain is a really good counter as well, because you can't use your effects on the field, and basically that is just a counter for every deck that has an effect on the field. And then Summon Limit, you can just summon twice a turn, so you can just summon the Primera or even the copy of Tridea on the field, and they can sync off into another monster. So that's one downside for that. But yeah, Summon Limit, Skill Drain, and Dimensional Barrier. The one minor card that I really want to recommend to you guys using is a copy of Grave of the Super Ancient Organism. Now, this is an old card basically that was used before, but I don't believe that this is quite significant. But it is a cheaper version of Skill Drain though. The only main issue here is that it doesn't really affect rank monsters or Exe monsters, or even Link monsters. So that's one minor downside for that. But up against a Centurion deck, since majority or almost all of the cards that they are using are synchro monsters, which just applies to levels, so this would be a really good effect or a really good Floodgate up against that type of deck. But anyways, that is all our topic for today with regards to the Centurions and its counters. Tell me your thoughts in the comment section below. Did I miss anything here? And thank you guys for the comments with regards to the Yubel counters. I had some good insights on some other cards as well, on how to counter them. And tell me in the comment section below if I missed any other cards for a counter against the Centurion deck. That's me signing off. Keep safe, good luck. If you like this kind of content, like and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.